Strategy requires thought. Tactics require observation. That's a quote often linked to Max Euwe, the chess grandmaster. And it really speaks to needing both the big picture and the close-up view. Welcome back to the Deep Dive.
Hello, everyone.
This is where we take source material, we unpack it, and pull out the key insights, the strategic bits, really just for you. The idea is to help you get informed quickly and well deeply.
Yes, we try to guide you through the noise, highlighting what really matters for understanding these complex topics, based only on the material we have in front of us.
Right. And today we're digging into a pretty significant event in India's recent diplomacy. Prime Minister Modi's visit to Cyprus. Now, for this deep dive, our focus is entirely drawn from excerpts of an article called Modi's Cyprus Visit, a strategic reset, which was published in the Times of India.
And this visit, it's particularly interesting, especially if you're following current affairs, India's foreign policy shifts. The source really frames it as signaling a very deliberate strategic move after quite a long time.
Absolutely. So our mission today is pretty clear. Understand the key strategic, the diplomatic, economic angles of this visit, but sticking strictly to the details and the perspective offered in this TOI article, we want to give you that focused, informed take on why this particular engagement matters regionally.
And we know many of you are, navigating the world of current affairs. Maybe you're preparing for exams, something like the UPSC mains or prelims perhaps, or maybe you're just committed to being a well-informed citizen. It's tough sometimes.
It really is.
So this deep dive, it's designed to cut through that clutter. We're taking one specific source, this article, and giving you the essential understanding, hopefully quickly and thoroughly.
Okay, let's get into it then. Let's unpack the significance. Maybe start with something the article really flags as striking, just how rare this visit was.
That really jumps out, doesn't it?
It does. The source points out this was the first visit by an Indian PM to Cyprus in 23 years. 23. Since Atal Bihari Vajpayee back in 2002. And before him, you have to go all the way back to Indira Gandhi in 1982.
Wow. So what, only 2 visits in 40 years before this one?
Exactly.
And that rarity, well, according to the article, that immediately tells you something. It signals a very deliberate effort to refresh ties, to put a renewed strategic focus on a relationship that frankly hadn't seen that top-level engagement for a long, long time.
It wasn't just a casual stopover.
No, it's presented as a pointed action. The source also notes it was part of a wider trip, right? A 3-nation tour.
Yeah, G7 in Canada, and also a historic first trip to Croatia.
Yeah.
And the article points out, crucially, that this visit happened shortly after that recent Pakistan crisis. The source calls it Operation Sindoor.
Right, and while the article doesn't give details about Operation Sindoor itself, the timing is definitely framed as relevant context for the Cyprus visit.
Okay.
And the source adds other details, too, like the delegation size, about 100 officials, which is significant, and that PM Modi was there specifically at the invitation of President Nikos Christodoulides.
So all these specifics, as the article lays them out, they kind of reinforce this idea that it was carefully planned, high level, meant to send messages and get things done.
Precisely. High-level engagement designed for specific outcomes.
Okay, so moving from the when and the who, let's get into the why. The strategic layers. The article really hammers home this idea of it being a signal aimed, well, directly at Turkey.
This is, you could argue, where the visit gets its sharpest strategic edge, at least according to the source. The article is pretty explicit. The visit is framed as a calculated signal towards Ankara.
And the reason?
Well, the source gives 2 main reasons. First, Turkey's occupation of northern Cyprus, about a third of the island, ongoing since 1974. And second, Turkey's backing of Pakistan during that Operation Sindoor incident just last month.
Yeah.
The source explicitly connects those dots.
So it ties directly into what the article calls this emerging Turkey-Pakistan axis.
Exactly. The source really emphasizes Cyprus's tough spot, geopolitically speaking. You've got the island divided. Turkey's the only country recognizing the Turkish Republic of Northern Cyprus, the TRNC. While the Republic of Cyprus, the internationally recognized government, is a full EU member with strong Western ties.
So by visiting Cyprus, India is, as the article sees it, aligning with an EU nation that has this very direct long-standing issue with Turkey's actions.
Precisely. It's a clear alignment, and the article even mentions the potential for a visit to the UN buffer zone, the Green Line.
Right. What significance does the source attach to that possibility?
Well, a visit to the Green Line, that physical dividing line, would be, according to the source, a highly symbolic gesture. Very powerful.
How?
It's framed as showing clear solidarity with Cyprus against what they see as Turkish expansionism and supporting Cyprus's sovereignty over the whole island. This kind of action, the article suggests, directly pushes back against that Turkey-Pakistan axis idea.
So it bolsters India's wider strategy,
Right.
perhaps aimed at isolating Pakistan, by working with a country that has its own issues with a key Pakistani ally.
That's exactly how the source presents it, leveraging this alignment. And it builds on an existing foundation because the source points out Cyprus has actually been quite a strong supporter of India already.
On what kinds of issues?
Key issues for India. The article highlights Cyprus's consistent backing on Kashmir, on cross-border terrorism coming from Pakistan, and even on India's push for UNSC reform.
Okay.
And there's a specific recent example in the source. After that terrorist attack in Pahalgam on April 22nd, Cyprus didn't just condemn it. Significantly, they promised to raise the issue of cross-border terrorism from Pakistan at the EU level.
That's quite a commitment.
It is, and the article also gives a little context, briefly mentioning past concerns in India about Turkey's stance on Kashmir, which apparently led to some backlash. So, aligning with Cyprus is presented by the source as reinforcing shared concerns and offering a strategic counterweight to Turkey's positions.
Okay, that makes sense strategically. Let's pivot a bit. The source also talks quite a bit about Cyprus as an economic hub, a connectivity point. It uses the phrase gateway to the Mediterranean and Europe.
Right, and even though its geography is sometimes debated Asia, Europe, the article emphasizes its EU membership. That's what makes it strategically vital for India's goals around connectivity market access. Plus, its location, Eastern Mediterranean, near major shipping routes, energy pathways, that adds another layer.
The source gives a very concrete example, doesn't it? Something about Eurobank.
Yes, Eurobank, one of the biggest banks in Cyprus, opening a representative office in Mumbai.
And the article says this is
Specifically, according to the source, to position Cyprus as that gateway for Indian businesses wanting to get into the EU market. It's about promoting capital flow, business links, connecting Indian companies with opportunities across Europe, Middle East, Africa, South Asia, all using Cyprus's financial setup.
And the article lists other attractions too, right, for Indian companies.
It mentions Cyprus's advanced financial services, a favorable tax system, and a strong shipping industry. All these factors, the source highlights, make Cyprus pretty compelling, not just as a finance hub, but as a practical launchpad for Indian firms targeting Europe.
Especially, I guess, with India pushing for more global economic integration.
Exactly. It fits that bigger picture.
And this economic positioning, this gateway idea, it ties into India's larger connectivity plans, right? The source mentions IMEC, the India, Middle East, Europe Economic Corridor.
It does, quite explicitly. The article states Cyprus is seen as an integral part of that, ambitious corridor. It's relevant for energy, potentially linking Eastern Med gas to Europe, but also for the wider trade routes IMEC wants to build.
So the visit helps solidify Cyprus's role in that.
That's the interpretation in the source, yes. The visit aims to, and I think the phrase used was, anchor Cyprus more firmly within this really key strategic economic project.
Okay. And speaking of bigger structures, the source also highlights Cyprus's role within the EU itself.
Yes, and what's particularly interesting there, as the article points out, is what's coming up. Cyprus is due to hold the rotating presidency of the EU Council in 2026.
Okay. So visiting now is kind of preparatory.
Seems like it. Visiting well ahead allows India to engage proactively, set the stage for deeper India-EU collaboration. The source mentions areas like trade, security, global governance. It's about using Cyprus's influence from inside the bloc when they hold the presidency.
Which connects directly to India's big push for that free trade agreement with the EU. The source says India wants that done by the end of 2025.
Yes, and the article really underlines how Cyprus, as an EU member with these strengthening ties to India, is well placed to advocate for India's interests, help navigate those crucial FTA talks within the EU system. The timing feels strategic.
Building goodwill before they take the chair, perhaps.
That seems to be the implication.
Okay, beyond the big strategic and connectivity plays, what about direct investment?
The source suggests Cyprus is already a pretty significant source of FDI for India. It is, and the source clarifies this is helped by the long-standing Double Taxation Avoidance Agreement, the DTAA, which provides a good framework for investment. And during the visit, the article mentions PM Modi addressed a business roundtable in Limassol, I believe.
Right. And what was the message there?
Well, he highlighted India's growth story, projecting India becoming the world's third largest economy soon.
Standard pitch, but important.
Yes, but crucially, the article reports he specifically invited Cypriot businesses to invest more in India. And he pointed to key sectors mentioned in the source: innovation, energy, technology, digital infrastructure.
So it's not just using Cyprus to get into Europe. It's also about attracting Cypriot money into India's key growth areas.
Exactly. It's a two-way street emphasized in the source.
You mentioned energy there as one of the sectors. The source also touches on energy security more generally, doesn't it?
It does. It notes Cyprus's importance in the Eastern Mediterranean, specifically around offshore natural gas exploration.
Which is a tricky area regionally.
Very tricky. The Times acknowledges the regional tensions there, partly because of Turkish drilling activities, which Cyprus contests. For India, needing massive energy imports and always looking to diversify sources, well, potential partnerships or just strategic awareness in this energy-rich area, as the source highlights, are clearly important. Adds another strategic layer to the relationship.
Okay. And one last thing, the source mentions a significant honor PM Modi received during the visit.
Yes, he was awarded the Grand Cross of the Order of Makarios III. The source identifies this clearly as Cyprus's highest civilian honor. It's named after their first president, Archbishop Makarios III, a really central figure in their history.
And the article mentions how PM Modi responded.
It does. According to the article, he dedicated the award, which is, a big gesture of respect from Cyprus, dedicated it to the India-Cyprus friendship and to the 1.4 billion people of India.
Nice touch.
And he also expressed confidence, as reported in the source, that the partnership between them will contribute to a peaceful, secure world. It really does feel like a symbolic high point, reinforcing that message of renewed, deeper ties.
Definitely provides a strong closing note to a visit packed with, well, strategic signals and practical objectives, as this POI article lays it out.
Absolutely. It covers a lot of ground.
So let's just quickly recap the main points from this deep dive, remembering we're drawing only from the insights in that Times of India article. First, the sheer rarity of the visit after decades signaling a deliberate strategic reset.
Right. Then the interpretation of it as a calculated signal towards Turkey, strengthening the alignment with Cyprus against that perceived Turkey-Pakistan axis, and boosting India's diplomatic isolation strategy regarding Pakistan.
Underlined by Cyprus's existing support for India on issues like terrorism and Kashmir, and that promise to raise terrorism at the EU level.
Then Cyprus as that crucial economic gateway to the EU, shown by things like the Eurobank office and its role in the IMS project.
Its position within the EU, especially with the upcoming presidency in 2026, seen as leverage for India-EU relations, particularly the FTA goal.
And the economic potential building on current FDI, inviting more investment into India's key tech and energy sectors.
Plus that added layer of strategic interest in Eastern Mediterranean energy exploration.
And finally, the symbolism of Cyprus's highest civilian honor, reflecting the warmth and importance attached to the relationship now.
So this deep dive, hopefully, shows how focusing on just one key source can help you quickly grasp the essential takeaways, the strategic nuances of a significant current event.
Exactly, giving you that core knowledge without getting bogged down in, too much extra detail.
In understanding these connections, these layers, it's really vital for building that strong foundation in current affairs. Essential if you're tackling exams like the UPSC, where you need that analytical view, or honestly, just if you want to be a more informed citizen today.
Absolutely. And this visit, as the source presents it, it touches on so many strategic aspects, countering regional groupings, economic corridors, energy security. It makes you think, based purely on what we've discussed from this article, which single aspect holds the most potential to really reshape India's strategic position long term. That's something interesting to mull over, isn't it?
It really is. Definitely food for thought. So, if you found this deep dive helpful, if it clarified things for you about this Cyprus visit, maybe especially if you're on that UPSC journey or just curious about India's global role, please do take a second to like this discussion.
Yes, and please subscribe to the deep dive. That way you won't miss our future sessions where we unpack important topics, always critically discussing the source material.
And if you have follow-up questions or points you want explored further, maybe suggestions for other source material you'd like us to tackle, please drop a comment below. We genuinely value your input and enjoy building this understanding together. Thanks so much for joining us for this deep dive.
Until next time.